So again, I have to call out this, and I'm gonna continue to call it out, that there was complete silence. It has been complete silence from most black Hollywood and most of the black media. When I say black media, I'm talking about TMZ. I didn't see any articles about the Southern Poverty Law Center from TMZ yesterday. I'm calling them out right now. I'm calling out TMZ. I'm calling out Charlemagne the God. I'm calling out T.L. Hughley, and I'm going to continue to call out that racist, scandalous Roland Martin. I'm calling out Hollywood Unlocked with Jason, who's not a very nice person. I'm calling out all these people that y'all who normally have everything negative to say about Donald Trump, every time he breathes wrong, but your favorite party, the Democrats, y'all saviors, y'all Jesus who died on the cross for y'all sins, the Democratic Party, the black pastors who I'm calling out, what's his name, Jamal Bryant. I didn't hear who's been calling us the KKK and the Ku Klux Klan, who's been calling us white supremacists. Jamal Bryant, where is your outrage that this civil rights organization was actually funding the KKK? They all silent. They ain't got nothing to say. You know why they ain't got nothing to say? Because it turns out the organization has been playing them like puppets on a string for like that. We've been telling y'all. Black conservatives and people on the conservative side have been telling y'all for a long time that the Democrats are playing y'all, that they got y'all like strings in a puppet, and y'all didn't believe us. Y'all thought that, no, we told y'all, because we are a lot smarter than y'all, because we actually use our brain. We don't just, we think for ourselves as black conservatives, because we realized that we were being lied to, that the Democratic Party has done nothing for black America, that we've been voting for them for 50, 60 years, and our communities are still in shambles. Our lives hasn't changed at all, and that it's time for a change. You know, look like Chicago's a great girl, great young lady running in for mayor. They need to vote for who's running the public. Flip Chicago, right? But they might not, because this is what black people do. So I'm calling out all the race hustlers. Reverend Al Sharpton, what do y'all have to say? That's my question to the black community and to these charlatans. What do y'all have to say about the Southern Poverty Law Center, y'all precious organization funding the KKK?
When I tell people I'm a black conservative, it could go either way, but this is the way it usually goes to other black folks that are possibly Democrats. They call you all sorts of crazy stuff. Oh, the party you're representing doesn't like you. They're going to put you back in chains. All this extra bullshit, right? They're the party of the KKK and all this extra shit. So now that the Southern Poverty Law Center just got indicted for wire fraud, and they seen some of the places that they were sending money to, a lot of hate groups that were paid to agitate and, just cause all sorts of riots and whatnot. And one of the hate groups was the KKK. And as of right now, I haven't seen any of the left-leaning figureheads or whatever they are. Every time something happens on the conservative sides or Trump sides or anything like that, they're on it. They're always talking crazy shit, this, that, and the third. But now they just found out that their biggest donors, their biggest supporters, was funding the KKK, and now nobody's saying anything. I really find that funny, because those guys, they love to bring up race. They love to bring up my skin tone and all this other extra shit, right? But now something like this is happening, and they're all mad quiet. We have been saying this for the longest, but they're going to call us Uncle Tom, mind you, Joe Henson. They don't even know it. They don't even know their history. They're going to call you Samba, all sorts of crazy ass shit. But at the end of the day, they will never call you a liar.
Let me ask you a simple question. Where did all of the money go? Not a rhetorical question, a real one. Because when you look at the numbers, the fundraising totals, the donation drives, the merchandise, the speaking fees, the nonprofit budgets, we are talking about billions of dollars that have flowed through civil rights organizations and activist networks over the last 6 decades. Billions, and the communities those organizations claim to be fighting for are still waiting for something to actually change. That's one question nobody in black media wants to answer. If you ask it out loud, somebody is going to call you a sellout. Somebody is going to say you're helping the other side. But here's where I keep coming back to. If asking where the money went makes me a sellout, what does that say about the people who took it? I'm not here to perform for anybody. I'm here to follow the money and judge these leaders the same way you'll judge any business, by what they actually produced, not by the speeches, not by the marches, by the results on the ground and the zip codes at the kitchen table where regular people are trying to figure out how to make it. So let's get into it. Earlier this year, a federal grand jury indicted the Southern Poverty Law Center on wire fraud and false statement charges. Federal prosecutors alleged that over $3 million of SPLC money went to informants connected to extremist networks, including the KKK. The LSP, the SPLC denies any wrongdoing, and the case is still working through the courts. But pause and think about that for a second. The allegation alone is that money raised to fight hate groups allegedly ended up with people tied to those same groups. That's the claim on the table. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The loudest voices in black media went completely silent. These are the same people who spend years breaking down every Trump tweet, calling out conservatives every single morning, never missing a chance to weigh in. But a major civil rights organization facing federal charges, fraud charges, crickets. Nothing from the big morning radio host, right? Nothing. Crickets to the simple fact, crickety crick, crick, crick. And that's just the simple fact of what a coincidence. Nothing from the famous reverends who command a microphone every Sunday. Nothing from L. Sharpton. Think about that for a second. Sharpton will board a flight within 24 hours if a story fits his narrative. He'll show up to a press conference for a case he barely knows the details of. Federal fraud allegations against a prominent ally, he had nothing to say. And it wasn't just Sharpton. The whole network went quiet at the same time. That coordinated silence. That's not a coincidence. That's a machine protecting itself. When everybody in the same circle goes quiet on the same story on the same day, somebody made a decision. The question is, who made it and what were they protecting? Around that same time, Sharpton did decide to speak up about the Supreme Court's Louisiana Voting Rights Act ruling. He called it an attack on representation and used the phrase no taxation without representation. Here's the thing. I actually agree with that principle. Taxation without representation is a real problem. But his argument cuts both ways, and I don't think he thought that through, because if black communities have been paying taxes without getting real representation in return, that's been a reality for decades inside cities his own party has control without interruption. Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit. If that's the problem, why has it lasted 60 years under the exact leadership he's been defending his entire career? But don't take my word for it, family. I want you guys to hear him for yourself.
The voting rights decision by the Supreme Court on the Louisiana case is devastating. It shoots a bullet in the heart of voting rights that was gained through bloodshed and through all kinds of machinations to deny blacks and people of color the right to deal with the fact they were being racially excluded from voter protection and therefore their right to vote. In the statement made by Justice Kagan, she graphically laid out the grievous and dramatic way this will impact the electorate and therefore the citizens. All citizens have to pay the same taxes, but we will not have the same representation and the same protection for that. And I think that what has happened in this ruling really puts at risk the question of how we started the whole celebration of the 250th anniversary of the country. No taxation without representation, where they've just severely impacted blacks having the right for representation, but we still have equal taxation. We must, as we celebrate the country's anniversary, not go back to those times where blacks and others didn't have any rights that were to be protected.
It's confusing and very hypocritical, because blacks and any other race, we all have the right and we all are still able to vote. So that's very misleading. Now, the simple fact is, you're saying that voting rights were taken away, which every black individual, speaking to what he's saying, can still vote. But the problem is the power to the people or to the party? Because if you're packing a certain race into a certain district so you can just win that without even actually going out there to campaign and actually showing your worth your salt and actually hearing individuals on the ground that actually live in these communities. In this case, let's speak to his specific, since he wants to be Pacific race wise, which I don't like to be because I hate divisive rhetoric. But the simple fact is, if all the black individuals are basically packed into one district to keep one party in power for however long, it doesn't really help, or it doesn't really make the politician, in this case, the party that he sides with, that he constantly defends, to really represent the people, because they don't have to do anything, because they automatically already have the maps mapped out racially. To the simple fact is, rather before the blacks even vote, is already leaning towards the power of being in control of the party he defends, which is the Democrat Party. So they automatically have the guaranteed verdict of winning the votes, because they packed them all in one district to continue to win that district to stay in power. But now that politician doesn't have the incentive or motivation to even go out and speak to individuals who actually live in this community. So then in turn, it underrepresents the people that's actually voting that you packed into that district, because you don't care to hear what they got to say, because you already know that you won the race. So it's my whole point. If that's the problem, right? The whole taxation without representation. The reality is there's no representation for the American taxpayer, let alone taxpayers. In this case, since he's speaking, let's speak specifics to what he's saying. The black individuals who have been packed in one district for the party to automatically stay in control without actually being on the ground to hear what the community needs, who pay taxes for all the bills they like to pass, and they like to funnel through and control it like it's their own money without representing the community, which then suffers. The voter suffers, because you take the power out of the people and you put it to the party and the politician. So now, instead of going out there speaking on policy and speaking on facts, you could just go off of, oh, vote for me, I'm black. Lo and behold, the maps are already redistricted in a way to stay in power in that district. So then it gives no motivation for the politician to do anything, because they're like, oh, I already got this in the bag. I'm gonna just go along with it. I won the race anyway. The scales are already tilted in my favor, so I don't got to do much work. And that's where underrepresentation takes place, because these communities don't thrive. The individuals who do pay taxes, they're paying taxes without proper representation. But however, the taxes are being paid to an individual who feel like they can run off identity politics and do whatever they please. So the reality is, representation, there's no representation but taxation, is my point. So when he pivots back, Al Sharpton, who we just listened to the Supreme Court, back to the Republican threat, back to the same frame he's been running since the 1980s, because the frame still works, not because it's solving anything, but because it keeps people confused on the external enemy instead of the internal accountability. And I'm just speaking questions to get you guys brain flowing, and also hold accountability no matter what political aisle you on, because it's about the people. It's about the American people. They're not spending their own money. They're spending American taxpayer money, no matter what race you are. This is for all race. This is for all Americans. These are for all individuals that are in the United States of America. The vote, is my point, should stay in the power of the people. And maps should be mapped out based on communities where people live, on those realistic communities where people actually lived. Not packing individuals and combining them with another district or another county in that district to automatically win the district. Or no cracking, as in sitting there and spreading a vote out to voters you already know lean to your party to keep you in power, and then stretching them out amongst districts so it's uneven, where the other party can win, and this is stretched out so much that there will be no turnout for no change, because the voters are stretched thin. So the answer isn't complicated once you stop being polite about it. If your career depends on a problem existing, you have zero incentive to solve it. Outrage is the product. Grievance is the business model. They can never retire the cause, because the cause is what keeps the lights on. That's not name calling. That's just accounting. Look at what came in. Look at what went out. And ask honestly, who actually saw their life get better? Picture this. A nonprofit raises $20 million over 10 years fighting poverty in the city. At the end of those 10 years, the poverty rate in that city is the same or worse. In any other industry, we call that a failed business. We ask for a refund. We pull our support. But in the activism industry, a failure like that just becomes a justification for the next fundraising campaign. We still have so much work to do. That line isn't hope. That's a business pitch. That's a sales pitch. Donations spike when headlines hit, salaries get paid, overhead gets covered based on all the things that they spent in regards of that business, campaigning wise, to throw out these sales pitches with the banners and all of that. The zip codes they claim to be fighting for stay exactly the same, like I mentioned earlier. And when something like this indictment happens, they don't march. They don't hold press conferences. They go quiet and protect the machine. You fam, you get where I'm going with this? And I just spoke specific to black community because that's what Al Sharpton on the stream was speaking to. But I'm really speaking for all race that should be represented appropriately, and their counties should be all accounted for appropriately based on where individuals live, and actually hearing out those communities and actually delivering for the people and keeping the vote inside and keeping the vote for the people, not party. Keeping the power within the voters, such as the American people, and not the power within the party or politician. But they go quiet to protect the machine because speaking up might turn the spotlight on their own operations. The people the machine was supposed to serve end up with nothing but a bill. Higher taxes because of frivolous spending. You cannot tax your way to wealth. And all these individuals who think in these led cities who feel as though they can continue to tax individuals to death. You cannot tax your way out of debt. So you have to undergo, there's going to be hard times. You're going to have to undergo some hard years to basically balance the budget. But you cannot tax your way to getting out of the budget. So a lot of people are starting to do that math for themselves now. Here's who benefits from keeping the system exactly the way it is. The organizations get to keep raising money. The media figures get to keep their platforms. The politicians get to keep their safe seats in gerrymandered districts where they never have to compete on policy, like I mentioned. Nobody in that ecosystem has a financial reason to solve the problem. The only people who need the problem solved are the regular working families, and they don't write the checks, but they pay the taxes. So now, family, let's go on to this next clip.
Hi, Leo 2.0 here, big time Trump supporter. Can someone do me a favor? Can someone get in touch with Reverend Al Sharpton and tell him that Leo Terrell would love to debate him on the recent Supreme Court ruling on the Voting Rights Act? You see, I think he's lying to the American people. I don't think he's telling the truth. I think he's playing the race card. So how about a debate between Leo Terrell, 35 years as a civil rights attorney, I know the law, versus shakedown Reverend Al Sharpton, who has played the race card and is more upset that he can no longer play the race card. So I'm willing to debate him. We'll have an independent moderator and we'll go back and forth, set amount of time for each one to respond to the call of the question. Let's do it. Because I think your days are numbered. I think people like you, Jim Kleinberg, Hakeem Jeffries are dinosaurs who prey on black Americans, trying to intimidate and scare them, claiming that racism still exists in the same manner it existed 65 years ago. This is 2026, Al Sharpton. It is not 1955, Al Sharpton. Accept my challenge to debate me, unless you're afraid, unless you know you don't want to be exposed as a phony, as a fraud. I'll be waiting. I'm not going anywhere. I challenge you to a debate. 1 hour. God bless America. God bless President Trump.
Well, I think the quietness is going to remain for that debate. I mean, it would be beautiful because you get to see two different perspectives and let people think for themselves. But the dialogue is in the forefront for people to actually see the different perspectives and actually see how it pans out. And also coming to an understanding or gaining knowledge for what you don't know, right? Because ignorance is just you not being open minded to the things you may not know, only closed minded to the things that you know. But see, if the dialogue would have happened, or does happen, or would happen, then it will open up individuals' minds in the renewing of their mind to things or perspectives that they never thought of.
I used to believe I was owed reparations due to slavery. I believed that I couldn't be racist towards white people because I didn't have systemic power. I believed in Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, all that stuff. I believed in transgenderism, feminism, pretty much everything that was backwards. And now,
Did you say blackwards?
yeah, that was actually a Freudian slip, but yeah, backwards. Okay. And now I'm pretty much the opposite of everything. I'm not for the feminism. I'm not for the stuff. I'm not for Black Lives Matter or reparations.
What happened?
Well, I had a situation back in Chicago where I moved in an apartment, and they originally told me I'd be assigned a roommate of the same gender to share a bathroom. They actually ended up assigning me a transgender as a roommate, and I only found out it was a transgender because the toilet seat was being left up consistently. And when I reached out to my black housing manager, she told me they weren't allowed to discriminate and I could move down the hallway to another room if I had a problem. And when she used the word discriminate, it made me think about politics. So I started looking up just what in politics made it legal for a man to be in a woman's space. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing all the evil, racist, Republican white people are the ones with common sense who don't want this weirdness going on. So I found myself voting for Trump.
And you became a wife at 23?
I did.
After being a feminist your whole life?
Did.
Okay.
So let's look at cities where this plays out on the ground, not the campaign ads, not the speeches, the actual ground. Chicago hasn't had a Republican mayor since 1931. Baltimore has been under the same party since 1967, and Detroit since 1962. These aren't cities that occasionally swap leadership and try something different. One party has held every level of power in these places for longer than most of you have been alive. The schools, the police contracts, the zoning laws, the city budgets, all of it controlled by the same political machine for 60 plus years. So what does that buy you? In Chicago, more than 600 people were shot and killed in 2023. The South Side and the West Side, neighborhoods that have voted Democrat in every single election for decades, have school dropout rates that will shock you if somebody put them on the billboard. Property values in those same neighborhoods have been basically flat for 30 years while property taxes keep going up. So you're paying more to stay in a neighborhood that's worth the same or less. That's not a conservative talking point. That's the Cook County assessor's own data. Baltimore tells a similar story. The city lost a third of its population between 1970 and 2020. People left, not because they wanted to, but because the conditions made staying feel impossible. Businesses closed, schools got cut, the tax base shrank, which meant less money for services, which means more people left. And that's a cycle that's been running for 50 years under the same political leadership, and nobody in that leadership class has ever been held accountable for it. Detroit went through bankruptcy in 2013, the largest municipal bankruptcy in American history, a city that was one of the economic engine of this whole country, especially when it came to the auto manufacturing business, home to one of the strongest black middle classes anywhere in the world, filed for bankruptcy. Pensioners, right? When it comes to pensions, took cuts on money they already earned. City workers lost benefits, and the political figures who presided over decades of mismanagement, most of them landed consultant contracts or advisory roles. They kept eating while the city bled out. Here's your balance sheet. 60 years of loyalty on one side, and what did you get in return on the other? The Federal Reserve's own data shows that the median black family holds about 1/8 of the wealth on the median white family. That number has barely moved in 30 years. So when Al Sharpton says he's out there fighting for Black America, the logical follow-up is fighting for what specific outcome, and where is the proof that it's working? Because the receipts from Chicago, Baltimore, and Detroit don't back up the victory lap. This is where regular people get frustrated. And I get frustrated because I believe that we should be fighting for all people, in my perspective. I believe we need to be colorblind at this point. Yes, racism existed at one point in history. No country is perfect. And that should be taken serious. But the simple fact is, how do we continue to move forward for the next generation and unity and love and positivity and continue to have productive conversations, even if we disagree with each other, because that's our rights. You may not like someone, but it protects those who you disagree with too. But we can still have productive conversations that, for the overall sentiment, is common sense and actually continues to push things forward for the betterment of all individuals with opportunities, no matter what your race, skin color, problem, whatever deficiency you may go through, physically, mentally, spiritually, is a simple fact that in the land of opportunity and as America and within the United States of America, no matter what, you can thrive and you can overcome. That's my belief, and that's what I root for in this whole video, and that's what I advocate for. No matter the race, we are all in this together. Because individuals sitting at the kitchen table trying to figure out how to cover rent, keep the lights on, and build something for their kids, and the political conversation keeps happening at a level that never touches any of that. Think about the guy trying to start an independent contracting business. He's a carpenter. He's good at what he does. He's been working for somebody else for 10 years, and he finally decides to go out on his own. Before he sends a single invoice, he might be looking at $800 in permit and licensing fees just to operate legally in his city. Then he needs liability insurance, which runs him around another $1,200 a year minimum. Then the city he's working in has a business privilege tax on gross receipts, so he's paying a percentage of his revenue before he even calculates his cost. He hasn't hired anybody. He hasn't made a profit yet. He's trying to start. And the city he's voted for his whole life is already charging him for the privilege. Or picture the woman running a home care service out of our neighborhood. She's got 5 clients, mostly elderly neighbors, and she's been doing this for 3 years. The city passes new insurance requirements, and suddenly she needs a commercial policy that costs more per month than she clears in a slow week. She can't absorb that. So she either shuts down or she goes back to working for a big agency that takes 40% of her rate. That business she built, those clients who trusted her, that independence she earned, gone. Not because she failed, but because of the cost of operating kept climbing, and nobody in her city council was thinking about her when they wrote that policy. These aren't rare cases, family. That's the standard experience in a lot of these markets, right? When you look at the economic life for our race, it doesn't happen in a boardroom. It happens at a kitchen table where someone is trying to turn a real skill into a real living. And the system keeps adding friction at every step. And the people running those cities, the people Al Sharpton campaigns for, they're the ones writing those regulations, setting those fees, and signing off on the insurance requirements. And then they show up at the church on Sunday, ask for your vote in the name of protecting the community. Think about that. Let's go on to the next clip, family.
So upset because I had to disrupt the House proceedings yet again because they were just trying to push through illegally drawn maps.
No. She said, I had to disrupt the proceedings because what they were trying to do was take away the black power, right? That doesn't empower black folks. It just empowers black politicians.
These Democrats, and I'm sorry to say this, I'm not trying to be racist, but they hate black people. These are the same people who fought to keep slavery in. These are the same people who built the KKK. These are the same people who hated us from the beginning. The Republican Party is the party of the blacks. Blacks free, the Republican Party is the only party that the black people actually assisted in finding. But all of that history has been torn away. People say, oh, there was this big switch. There was never a big switch. There was never a big switch. So the same Democrats who hated black people from the beginning are the same ones who hate us now. And they use our cause. How did Black Lives Matter turn into something about LGBTQ? When blacks really don't support that. We're conservative. We're really not about that. Not only that, we don't support abortion. We're about workers. This is the black culture. We ain't never been about that. Not only that, we're not about feminism. No, we're not. Black women marry their husbands and respect their husbands. That's what we on. We're not on this. Oh, I do what I want. We don't do that.
Family, the woman who was speaking, that was Bevelyn Betty Williams. She was a pro-life activist. Basically, she stood for, saving children and not women aborting, kids, aborting their kids, aborting babies. She got arrested and sent to prison because the government said under the Biden administration, she and others physically blocked abortion clinics and intimidated workers during protests. And later, Donald Trump pardoned her because he believed the punishment was too harsh and politically targeted against pro-life protesters. So that's just a gist. She is released, and hope her and her family are doing well. But back to what I was saying, the same political class that makes it harder to start a business in your neighborhood is also the one telling you that the other side is your enemy. That's a neat trick if you can pull it off, and for decades they did. Now, here's the part that really makes you think. A huge portion of Black Americans are already living conservative values, like she said. Married, going to church, running small businesses, budgeting carefully, raising their kids with structure. I think that's all Americans. It's not just Black, all race, just trying to figure it out and live life. And they're not waiting on a government program. They're already doing the work every single day. But their lifestyle and their body don't match. The gap exists because decades of political messaging turned party loyalty into a cultural identity test. You were told that voting a certain way, no matter the race, was the only way to protect your community. Question that logic and somebody calls you a sellout. Picture a family in Baltimore. Dad runs a small landscaping company. Mom works in healthcare administration. They go to church every Sunday. They're saving up to buy a house in a better school district because the one in their current zip code, isn't cutting it. They don't want a handout. They want safe streets, good schools, and a government that stays out their way enough to let them build something. Just give me the opportunity, but I don't want government to control or regulate anything or give me any handouts that's going to raise taxes, because I want to preserve more so I can leave it inheritance and pass down to my children and live the American dream, which was buying a house. So the simple fact is, a lot of Americans, in my understanding, from my perspective, is they don't want to be taxed to death. If anything, they want to be able to they want to be able to keep most of their money they worked hard for, but also being able to actually have money where they won't be taxed to their eyeballs, to actually be able to build a life for themselves with the opportunity presented to seize the moment. See, money is just a tool for flexibility, right? Money gives you more options. It's just a tool for investment to actually shape the life and reality that you want for your kids, your spouse, and bigger than you, just your families. And I'm sure, in my perspective, a lot of individuals don't mind helping or paying taxes, if the government makes sure that it's overseen responsibly when it comes to welfare and SNAP for individuals who may need a leg up, because life is full of ups and downs, and nobody minds helping the next person that may need help and going through challenging times. Adversity is, you know, is prone to everyone in some way, shape, or form. But by every measure, their values, a lot of Americans' values line up with a platform that prioritizes small businesses, mom and pop shops, which we've grown up on because it was just the beauty of connecting in your community and supporting your community and families and stuff, knowing each other and knowing your neighbors and knowing your name, knowing your neighbor's name, and you know looking out for each other, school choice and community safety. But they've been told their whole lives that one party is for them and the other one is against them. So they keep voting the same way their parents did and their grandparents did, out of loyalty to a narrative that was built before they were born. And the neighborhood they're trying to escape from hasn't changed in 30 years. That's not a coincidence. That's what happens when political loyalty gets decoupled from political accountability. When a party knows that it has your vote no matter what, it has zero incentive to deliver anything. You're not a constituent at that point. You're inventory. That messaging is losing its grip, though. Younger voters and working class families are starting to ask a different question. Not which party I'm supposed to belong to, but which policies actually make it easier to pay rent and keep my kids safe. Once people start asking that question honestly, the outrage for hire model starts to crack. And you can't keep selling a solution to a problem you've been quietly helping to maintain for 30 years. The real receipts aren't in the speeches, they are in the zip codes. And here's the 10-year consequence if this keeps happening, right? For the next generation of working class individuals and families, staying locked into this political arrangement that doesn't deliver results, and the wealth gap doesn't close, the school quality doesn't improve, the small business failure rates doesn't drop, and the neighborhoods have been waiting for 60 years keep waiting. And that at some point, that's not politics anymore. That's a generational transfer of lost. And the people at the podium collecting speaking fees don't feel any of it. So here's what I want you to take away from this. Stop judging leaders by what they say at a podium. Judge them by what actually changes in your neighborhood, not the speech, not the march, the zip code, the score rating, the cost to open a business, the time it takes to get a permit, and the crime rate on your block. Those are the numbers that tell you whether your political loyalty is being returned or just being collected. Both parties should have to earn your vote by showing real results, not by counting on your fear of the other side. The vote for us or else argument only works if you never ask or else what. Because in Chicago, Baltimore, and Detroit, we already seen what or else looks like. It's like 60 years of the same results. The common sense solution isn't complicated. Hold every leader accountable to outcomes, not identity. Ask every candidate not what they stand against, but what they actually built, fixed, or improved. And ask where the money went. Ask why the school in your neighborhood is still failing after 30 years of promises. Ask why it costs more to start a business in your city than to start 2 counties over. And ask why the same organization that claimed to fight poverty keep getting richer while the poverty rate holds steady. And if somebody calls you a sellout for asking those questions, that's the most important information they can give you. Because the only people who need you to stop asking questions are the ones who can't answer them. Don't let nobody turn your vote into a loyalty pledge. That's how the hustle works. Your vote is leverage. It's the one resource that every politician and every party actually needs from you. Use it like it's worth something, because it is. Fact check the claims, follow the money, put your support behind whoever is actually moving the needle on your rent, your schools, and your ability to build something real. That's not left or right. That's just sense. If this gives you a different way to look at how we hold leaders accountable, make sure you share, like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on your post notifications so you don't miss any breakdowns like this ever. Spread that peace, love, and positivity, and let the love supersede the hate. And as always, no matter the race, love and unity is important, and that's how division dies, because the simple fact is we do better in unity. Catch you in the next one, family. Love you guys. As always, spread that peace, love, and positivity. Be positive. Peace.